A little bit today about, or this evening about DOGE, the criminal organization put together by the Nazi South African immigrant, Elon Musk. More than 20 civil service employees who were, I don't know who wound up working for Elon Musk, probably not of their own volition, but more than 20 of them resigned this morning from Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. And the consensus was that they were refusing, this was in their statement, some of which I'm going to share with you in a second, they were refusing to use their technical expertise, quote, to dismantle critical public services, end quote. There were 21 staffers who wrote in a joint resignation letter, a copy of which was obtained by the Associated Press, which is where I found this information. In part, the resignation letter says, quote, we swore to serve the American people and uphold our oath to the Constitution across presidential administrations. However, it has become clear that we can no longer honor those commitments, end quote. Now, in their resignation letter, and I would assume in a chat with the Associated Press, the employees also warned that people enlisted by the South African Nazi immigrant to help him slash the size of the federal government were political ideologues who did not have skills necessary or experience necessary for what the South African Nazi has instructed them to do. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They have no idea. Now, the mass resignation of engineers and data scientists and product managers is a temporary setback for the South African Nazi and the Orange Bastards' tech-driven purge of the federal workforce. Just a slight crimp in the plans right now with the resignation of these people who are highly skilled. And the resignations come during a bunch of court challenges that have tried to stop or stall or unwind the efforts being made by Trump and the South African Nazi to coerce thousands of government workers out of their jobs. And if I get to it, I'll share with you what the governor, the Republican Christian fascist governor of Virginia, suggested that the federal employees who are being fired, what they could do for employment. Anyway, after this happened this morning, this little bitch who is the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, she adopted her usual snot, shitty little attitude and was dismissive of this resignation. This is what she said, quote, anyone who thinks protests, lawsuits, and lawfare will deter President Trump must have been sleeping under a rock for the past several years. President Trump will not be deterred from delivering on the promises he made to make our federal government more efficient and more accountable to the hardworking American taxpayers. End quote, you little bitch. Jesus Christ. Why is it that so many, I know the answer to the question, but what the hell? Why is it that so many so-called press spokespeople, press secretaries for Trump were just such dumb shits who had this snotty, supercilious attitude of just being dismissive, well, of the Fourth Estate? Well, it's because dictators do not like an independent press. So I guess they had a contest or a test for the snottiest little bitch who could stand out front and talk to her betters during a press briefing, and they came up with this little shit, Caroline Leavitt. Oh, well. Anyway, these 20-some DOGE staffers who resigned, they were working for what was once known as the USDS. That stands for United States Digital Service. Never heard of it. Have you? Well, it was an office established by Barack Obama's administration after the screw-up when the attempt to roll out the healthcare.gov web portal that millions of Americans use to sign up for insurance plans through Obamacare. And it was a botched job. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. And, of course, the Christian fascists immediately jumped all over that. And, with the usual, if Jesus Christ would have wanted health care for everybody, he would have, put it in the Bible or some such shit. So this division, United States Digital Service, was established specifically to make sure that no shit like that ever happened again. Now, the people who resigned, these 20-some people who resigned this morning, they all previously held senior roles at tech companies like Google and Amazon. And in their resignation letter, they made it clear that they signed up to work for the government out of a sense of duty to public service. There's something that the orange vomit couldn't even conceive of. Anyway, according to the staffers, the ones who resigned, people wearing White House visitors' badges, some of whom would not give their names, grilled these employees about their qualifications and their politics. These little fuckers just invaded and started asking questions that they had no business getting the answers to or asking the questions to begin with. Now, some of the staffers made statements that indicated they had the people doing the questioning made statements that was a clear indication they had limited technical understanding. And in other words, I don't want to confuse you. These are people working for DOGE that all of a sudden were being given the loyalty test by the South African Nazi. So to his own employees, he unleashed this bunch of little junior Nazi fucks who walked around asking questions like, what's your political affiliation? What's your education? How old are you? You ever had sex? Shit like that. Anyway, according to the staffers who resigned, these interviewers refused to identify themselves. They asked all these questions, and the process, according to the staffers, created significant security risks, end quote. Because who are these people? All of a sudden, people walk in. They all work for the South African Nazi immigrant. But who in the fuck gave them the power, the authority? Well, the South African immigrant Nazi and the orange-faced baboon that sits in the White House. And also, I wasn't aware of this, but earlier this month, about 40 staffers in this particular office, the Office of Digital, what's it called again? USDS? What did I call it? Department. Hold on a minute. I should highlight this stuff when I'm sharing it with you, but I usually don't because I'm moving too fast, and I shouldn't move that fast, should I? But anyway, the Office of United States Digital Service, there you go. Sorry, USDS. So many acronyms, so many letter organizations, right? That's my excuse. Anyway, earlier this month, about 40 staffers in that particular office were laid off. And the firings resulted in what is being reported as a devastating blow to the federal government's ability to administer and safeguard its own technical footprint. That's according to the staffers that resigned this morning, which means very clearly that information that no one other than this division should have is now available to anybody who wants to get their fucking hands on it. Like, let me guess, maybe some of Putin's boys, of which Trump is one. Anyway, the letter of resignation went on to say this, quote, these highly skilled civil servants were working to modernize Social Security, veteran services, tax filing, health care, disaster relief, student aid, and other critical services, end quote. Now, they're making reference to the 40 people who were fired earlier this month. The resignation letter goes on. Quote, their removal endangers millions of Americans who rely on these services every day. The sudden loss of their technology expertise makes critical systems and Americans' data less safe, end quote. Now, those who remained after this firing occurred the first of the month, there were about 65 of them remained. And they were sucked into DOGE's, this bullshit government office that is not a government office at all. It's run by the South African Nazi. So of the 60 staffers who remained after the firing, they were absorbed into DOGE. And then about a third of them quit this morning, over 20. Going back to the letter of resignation, quote, "We will not use our skills as technologists to compromise core government systems, jeopardize American sensitive data, or dismantle critical public service," end quote. And then they added this, quote, "We will not lend our expertise to carry out or legitimize DOGE's actions," end quote. Well, I wonder what the South African Nazi immigrant thinks of this kind of attitude on the part of people that he had specifically assigned to continue to dismember and destroy the U.S. government. I'd like to consider it a slap in his fucking white pasty face. Now, after Trump was elected, because millions of Americans decided to sit out this presidential election, the South African Nazi immigrant hinted that there was more to come, more slashing and burning, and he posted on his social media site X, quote, "Threat to democracy? No, threat to bureaucracy." Well, I would tend to disagree with that. But if you remember last week when this dumb son of a bitch stood on the stage at the Christian Political Action Conference, CPAC, where these neo-fascists love to gather together and, I don't know, get involved in some kind of weird mind meld of fascist bullshit. But there was the South African immigrant, Nazi, hoisting this blinged out Chinese-made chainsaw above his head that was given to him by the Argentinian president, Javier Milei, who apparently is another Trump acolyte. They're all over the fucking world now. We are heading into what could very well turn out to be a very dark period in global history. I worry quite a bit about this. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. The Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.